It's April 27th, and I'm in my Russian apartment. I've been working on the website, and had to go and reference back to the events around the death of the dinosaurs, and brings up the different theories that are being tossed around in the university and modified by this bit of information. Says people largely raised in apartments and fed on book learning, but lack of just the common sense of being active in physical reality and having that common sense that comes from that experience as a child. That's the logical ability to intuitively understand things like the motion of the earth and the types of things that had to happen to cause what we see. And here's Earth, and it's showing it tilted on its axis, spinning, and there's clear things that caused this, and a clear background. It's sometimes hard to put the parts together, but I'll give you the picture. There's two main things that are responsible for the distribution of the continents on the surface of the Earth. And there's one cause for the continents. The cause for the continents was the fact that the Earth faced the sun, the same face to the sun. And the dividing line where that ridge is between North and South America and Africa is what faced the sun. That face where that ridge runs through. And the truth of what formed this Pangaea, it was called, was the sun's solar wind and heat with activity on the surface of the Earth from the heat that made it different from the cooling inner rock. And then the weather of that reality with water and air on the Earth, and the back of the Earth cold, ice only, and the front of the Earth a point where it's so hot it's just making steam. The water raising up into a cloud, condensing, and a ring of life around this spot facing the sun. That's where Pangaea formed. And their perfect ring, too hot in the center, ice cold in the back, but a ring of life in this Pangaea, this land that built up from the solar heat and flux. The solar wind actually deposits particles. And then, when I say particles, I mean different atoms, the flux coming off from the nuclear reactions on the surface of the sun, the solar wind. So that's the formation, that's the background in this process going on in the order of 5 billion years or more, in the order of billions of years, possibly 10 billion years of process here that the Earth existed in its orbit. But there's clear evidence that it was spread apart because it was hit from behind. Now, it was hit from behind in a glancing blow that the main force was to break apart Pangaea, leaving that ridge down the center, and spreading the planets out and rotating. And the Alvarez hypothesis and asteroids with their cataclysmic fire events, it wasn't like that. It was a much larger object, the moon, a sixth the size of the Earth. And the moon, in a relatively slow glancing blow, with the force to break the continents apart, break Pangaea into its various continents, and such an impact that it moved the continents with a terrible motion, enough to break any big eggs and to kill any big animals. The fish and the birds and the little animals are the ones that were swept along with the rush of water and air, and some survived. And the plants tended to survive. But a totally different environment. Instead of a ring of life around the Earth, then became a ring of life around the equator. Now, what way does it spin? You know, the sun rises in the east. So, when you look at New York, you make it go towards the sun. So the Earth began spinning this way. And it on a little bit of a tilt. The straight line is its orbit around the sun. The equator of the Earth is at an angle to that, because it was not struck directly in the center from the back. Again, the Earth facing the sun, like you are the sun, and you're looking at the Earth, this dividing line right in the Pangaea centered. That was the center of the single continent that had built up, called Pangaea. Alright, and we know that it was hit in such a way that it spin, so New York comes to you before California. Like that, New York and then California. But it's spinning at a little bit of a tilt that tells how the off-axis, off the plane of the sun, orbit around the sun. How was it off that? It was off it in such a way, here's the way the Earth was. And where would you have to apply torque to make it spin instead of spinning this way, right in the orbit, or in the plane of the Earth's orbit, but a little bit off? You can say what direction. You know that it was hit opposite this ridge, mid-Atlantic ridge. So it was hit right from behind, off center, that is the glancing blow, the movement of the moon when it hit the sun. You can tell. You can tell where it hit. It hit in such a way as to make New York move towards you. That actually it spread New York away, but make the Earth spin. That then it would move towards you. So what would it have to be? It would have to be coming from this direction to hit the Earth from behind, break them, and then with its glancing blow, taking enough energy out of the moon to put it in orbit around the Earth. Would be in a close orbit. It hit and almost stuck to the Earth, but it had this enough speed to go into to give energy to cause the Earth to rotate and lose enough energy that it get captured in an orbit. Now, as far as the moon goes, as I show in my website, there is a leverage with the tide being off-center that actually couples to the moon and increases its orbit. It actually is being torqued by the offset of the center of the gravity between the Earth and the tidal wave. So there's an actual pushing of the speeding up of the Earth, of the moon, slowing down the Earth. The Earth is spinning faster, and the tide pushes and applies a torque essentially to the orbit, the way it works, together with the force of gravity. All right. So that's how, and the other thing how we can know this is that outer ring of what would have been here is the Pangaea would have been centered here, and the outer ring of life, centered around Pangaea. Africa would have been over here, and Asia would have been down, tucked into Africa. That Asia in the collision went in the collision. Asia went up from Africa, and Antarctica went down. Africa was in the middle, and on the upper hemisphere was Asia that pushed up, away and up, and Antarctica that pushed from here away and down. And we know, because there are this ring of life would have gone through, like here is the outer rim after it's been spread. This is the outer rim. This all is the back of the Earth. All these continents were pushed this way. They were on the other side. But the outer ring is this ring here, what was the original ring of life when it was together as the coast of Pangaea. So, and you can look and you can find dinosaurs here, 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 here. You can find them in this whole ring of life. That's where life evolved, for something in the order of billions of years, tens of, around 5 billion years, it seems. Possibly 10. But, so that is the background of how the continents were formed as a single continent, Pangaea, and broken by the capture of the moon, hitting from behind, swiping. The moon large enough that it's like a slow collision that spread them out, and enough force on the surface of the earth, the thrust killing the big animals, the light animals. Some survived, and the plants survived in this, what ended up being the resulting ring of life, which was Africa. Basically, Africa was the ring of life. It was on the equator. The other things had undergone so much devastation by the movement on the surface of the earth. Africa, it was the more stable, and possibly South America. But there was life on the surface of the earth, and this ring as the equator turned. All right, so that's the background, but there's another very important thing where the mountains along California and South America, those were mountains formed as they were pushed from this side of the earth, pushed from being hit from behind. When we say hit from, this was behind it at that time. You're looking at the Pacific Ocean. You can see, actually, you can tell right where the moon hit. It was in order to have the motion that we have of the Earth now, and to know that it was exactly opposite of the mid-Atlantic ridge. It was right here where my finger is, and that would be, I'll put on my glasses and see, the impact would have been excuse me, the impact would have been at Micronesia, Coriolis, Micronesia, not far from Guam, but a little further south from Guam, at the closest identifiable island would it'd be south of Guam. It'd be a little bit north of New Guinea's right-hand side as you look at it on the globe, facing north. But so right here is where the center of the moon strike would have been, right where my finger is. Okay, now the next thing is that these mountains that were formed from the collision are the mountains on the outer rim of what would have been Pangaea. So when you look at it from the Pacific Ocean, where the impact would have been, and the continents spreading on the right and on the left towards the point of impact and building mountains as the continents slid over the surface, and the inner part of the continent heavier and the outer part up, and all of the rubble from the building from the moving process piling up. You have a ring of mountains that were formed when this land mass spread apart. When this spread apart, on the other side is where the mountains formed from that. So it would have been North and South America, and Japan and that side of Asia, and a little bit what formed from Australia, and a little bit what formed from Antarctica. But that does not explain the Appalachian Mountains, and these are older. The Appalachian Mountains are older than the 65 million years ago when the moon struck the earth and killed the large animals. The major explanation for the Appalachian Mountains was their sedimentary rock. So are the Pacific mountains along South America. But what I want to get to is two other groups of mountains. The Appalachians are a little bit more hard to explain. They were before the collision and may have had to do with the process of Pangaea and the rocking of the lava, or that would have been a very old igneous rock formation process, and granite and so forth, the fire rocks. But there was an upheaval of these sedimentary rocks in the Appalachians that may have been part of the process of upheaval after North America moved, and the East Coast being as the continent settled down into the mantle, the East Coast rising a part of that. The other major thing, like for the Alps and the Himalayas, that's another thing. That's a post-moon collision event, totally. It's sedimentary rock. I'm near Petrogorsk, and the Petrogorsk means 5 mountains, and I've climbed the mountains here and around the apartment, and found on the top of the mountain the fossils. They're on the top of the mountain is sedimentary rock that was upheaved, and that brings the second, as far as Earth formation, the third thing. The first was the formation of Pangaea facing the sun. The second was the strike by the moon, sending the planet into motion, being struck in the Pacific in such a way that it made the Earth spin and capture the moon. If you check the spin of the moon and the earth, you'll see that's correct. So what caused the Himalayas and the Alps? They were caused by what we call Coriolis force. With the Earth spinning, there is a force out from the axis. Just like you can take a bucket of water on a rope and swing it, and the water won't fall out. Any child who grew up in other than a chicken coop had the freedom to feed the animals and carry the water, and every child knows you could swing the bucket around your head or swing it around in a circle. Of course, today the university people don't have that kind of comprehension. They were raised in apartments. I say raising children in chicken coops. But this Coriolis force, how that works to pull the continents down, to pull Asia towards the equator. What's the pull towards the equator? It's two forces. The Coriolis effect is two forces. Here's the Earth spinning, and that is a force directly out from the axis of rotation on every element of matter. And the force is directly related to its speed, which is directly related to its distance from the radius. The actual translational speed of a particle on the axis is zero. It's only rotating. The translation means along a straight line. If you let a particle go, does it move? If you let a particle go in the spinning on the axis, it doesn't travel anywhere. If you let a particle go without any gravitational attraction on the surface of the Earth, it continues traveling in whatever direction it was going before gravity was turned off. Of course, you don't turn off gravity, but that's the second force. So the first one is just being spun, where the particles are trying to keep going in a straight line, and that acts like a pull out. And any child who's played enough and thought about it enough on a merry-go-round understands that. Most people, you talk to a physicist from the university, and they don't know which direction they'd fall if they let go on a merry-go-round. They think they would fly out from the merry-go-round. It's not true. You would fly in the direction you were going when you let go of the merry-go-round. That's equivalent to the idea of turning off gravity. What would happen to a ball on the surface of the Earth if you turned off gravity? It wouldn't fly away from the Earth. It would fly in the direction it was moving when you turned off gravity. The same thing when you're moving on a merry-go-round. If you let go, you don't fly out from the merry-go-round. You fly in the direction you were going when you let go. So this Coriolis effect is this force effect that is holding you to the Earth. The Coriolis force is out. It's trying to get the planet free from the surface, or the continent. The continent wants to go in a straight line, and gravity is pulling it. The Coriolis effect, object in motion tends to stay in motion along a straight line unless acted on by a force. That's Newton's law. Okay, what is causing the North America to not go in a straight line? It's being acted on by a force of gravity. What is a straight line if you turned off gravity? It's in the direction that it is moving at the time you turned it off. Now, there's two forces acting here. There's the force of gravity that wants to move, separate from the surface of the Earth. That's the force of rotation, pardon me. Rotating, it wants to separate. Just like if you put water on there and spun it, the water would spin off. The continents want to separate, and they want to separate in a way that is perpendicular, in a plane perpendicular to the axis, perpendicular to the equator. Now, the force of gravity is not perpendicular to the axis. The force of gravity is to the center of the Earth. So you've got this one, the force on Asia here that is wanting to break free directly away from the axis, and another force, gravity, trying to pull it down but towards the center of the Earth. So you've got one trying to lift it and another one pulling it towards the center of the Earth, and it's a downward pull. It's Coriolis force, or Coriolis effect, pulling Asia down into India and into Africa, creating the Alps, creating where I'm at right now in the Caucasus, creating the Himalayas. These are being, because Asia is being forced down by its rotational separation force out from the axis, and its gravitational force pulling it towards the center of the Earth. Ends up with a net downward force that builds the newer mountains caused by Coriolis effect. Now, that's the reality of Earth formation. It's a no-brainer. I'm impatient. I've understood this for years. This is 2012, the 27th of April, and double check that. So what can we say to put things together here? It's a no-brainer that that the Alvarez hypothesis is wrong, that meteor striking the Gulf of Mexico was some 200,000 years before the extinction of the dinosaurs. But it's very understandable that the moon, just discovered last year, they got samples, dug a hole and found samples of ice in the moon. Well, that's not surprising. It surprised them, but when the Earth was struck in the Pacific Ocean here, that was the cold side of the moon, and the Earth was struck by a very heavy object moving slowly, but so much force it spread the continents apart, from breaking up Pangaea, and it made a smooth face on one side of the moon. Look at it. where all the craters should be there, they aren't, because that's where it struck the Earth 65 million years ago. And picked up a bunch of ice and water. The water vapors would have probably gone long ago, but the water and ice in the down in the dirt that we discover that shouldn't be surprising. It's because it picked up the water and it struck what is now the Pacific Ocean. Of course, it would have been the cold, very cold side of the moon. But that's the story. I have a website, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, where I was I'm trying to fulfill my life's work, which started at the age of 19, I guess it was, wondering what's the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. And I'll quickly go over the steps. What gives life meaning for intelligent life? And the worst thing we can have is solitary confinement, other than physically being beaten. But you want to torture somebody, lock them up so they can't communicate with anybody. The highest suicide rate in the world is in South Korea now, and that's just since the Korean War, when they became mechanized with the help of America. This is 2012. In 2010, December, the G20 meeting in South Korea met, and the BBC had a big presentation how well they're doing. And then they said they've got a problem. They've got the highest suicide rate in the world. They've become the 15th largest economy, and they're very thankful, very affluent. Everybody's busy, but they have the highest suicide rate in the world. The major cause of death between 10 and 40 is suicide in South Korea. And then they had a priest on that run a suicide hotline and explained that it wasn't like that before the war. And what people don't understand is people need people. It's the breakdown of the home. The women are all out working now. It isn't divorce. It's the lack of home relationship. Relationships are not husband and wife. It's being together. It's the interaction that is the reality of a social relationship. And those relationships don't exist now. They don't have time together. They might be sons and daughters, but they don't have family life. And they are miserable enough that they have the highest suicide rate. So what can we do? We can understand these things. And that's another issue completely. But I was had taken a job, getting prepared to be married. I'd taken a job to learn to repair office calculators. They were mechanical in that day. And I had to go to a city, Syracuse, 150 miles away, to get my first work. And I was alone in my apartment. It was actually just a room. And I asked myself, what's the meaning of life? What gives life meaning for intelligent life? And that's the ontological question. What gives it meaning? Without other people, there isn't any meaning. There is meaning of a sort, but if you're the only person, it's not a gratifying life. And there's no future after you're gone. So, to have fellowship. All right, so to really understand the ontological question, you need to understand group behavior. That's sociology. So I went to Syracuse University and signed up for Sociology 101 with Professor Bell. But then continuing to reason, to really understand group behavior, you have to understand the individual, psychology. And to really understand psychology, you need to understand the brain, physiology. And to really understand physiology, you need to understand the cells that make up the brain, cytology. And to really understand the cells, you have to understand the chemicals that make them up, chemistry, the molecules that make them up, chemistry. And to really understand the molecules, you really need to understand the atoms that make them up. And to really understand atoms, you need to understand physics. And to really understand physics, you need to understand mathematics and computer. It's the language we use for describing quantitatively and modeling to see if our model behaves the way reality does. So that was my start for not having gone to high school. I did go to high school for, that was 10th grade for me, for 2 weeks until I turned 16 and quit. I had failed 2 years. But I did find out I wasn't as stupid as my teachers told me. I couldn't spell. That's a whole other story. You'd find it somewhere else, having to do with memorization versus phonetic learning. But there's a part of my brain disabled by what they did to me in school. It turns out that is the reason I can't remember names easily and spelling. But that might be a gift in a way, because I have to understand things rather than memorize them. So it motivated me. And when I went in the military, they told me I wasn't as stupid as my teachers had told me. They made me a radio repairman, and I took a test to get high school equivalency, 5 2-hour tests, and passed 2 of the 4 tests for college equivalency. So that's how I got started, trying to think about how things are together and what brings them meaning. And that's the motivation for my life's work and the motivation for my website, which at this time in 2012, many parts are not connected, and because I rearranged, and some parts are missing. I have work to do with atomic models. The vortex ring basis of particles is a no-brainer anymore, but that's enough for this. I hope that it's some help to you, and that you are motivated to investigate for yourself, and the thoughts that I have are not for you memorizing and learning from me. The thoughts that I have are to share with you that you can put your experience with reality together. If you were deprived of that and indoctrinated as a child, you have a disability. But you may enjoy learning logically, even if it's not intuitive. You can't go back and give yourself common sense. You can't go back and give yourself that intuition. That comes from experiencing reality as a child before you were 12. If you were indoctrinated, that's why whether memorizing the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran, you have no choice. You can submit or rebel, but you can't grow naturally. You need to respect that. You need to respect children's rights, their need for the freedom to experience reality, not indoctrination. It's a crime against humanity to indoctrinate a child before they're 12, to give them opportunity to explore and help them with the skills to quantify and to qualify what they see and speak in words, hot and cold, and help them understand how to measure quantitatively 35 degrees or something long and short qualitatively, 5 meters quantitatively. That's a different thing. That's helping them and teaching them skills out of a need to know, rather than making them memorize a bunch of stuff that ends up disabling their individual sovereignty. Okay, I hope you get opportunity to go to the website, The Way, the Truth, and the Life. Thank you.